let's cross over to Vivek Vaidya. He is Director for Automotive and Transportation at Frost Sullivan. Vivek, thanks very much indeed for joining us. First of all, it's quite, how does this compare to the situation that we had after the tsunami and the earthquake? It's very similar.
Yeah, it is very similar, but the scale is quite different. Japan is probably 8 to 10 times as large a base as Thailand. The impact that we had of tsunami was significantly higher than what we had in Thailand. But I would say that the timing that we see in the Thailand floods couldn't have been worse. The Japanese automakers were looking at reviving their production, looking at ramping up the part supplies and assemblies in overseas plants, and the floods have just come and squashed their dreams.
Vivek, tell me, when we talk about the supply chain, what are we talking about in particular here? Because this supply chain extends globally for some of these companies, doesn't it?
Correct. So what happens is there are some engine components, transmission components, especially those of pickup trucks are actually manufactured in Thailand and shipped over to the plants all across the world. So what happens is if that production stops, then now you see that Honda Malaysia has stopped production. Then Toyota has called off the overtimes in US. So all the global supply chain gets impacted because these components are not reaching there.
Just at the moment, we just heard more news that the Japanese authorities have actually been into the currency markets and supporting the dollar, intervening to really weaken the yen, if you will. Vivek, how does that play out when it comes to the net numbers for these car makers too?
Yeah, yen has a big impact. Japan has this strategy of using Japan as the supply base and supply the components and supply the vehicles all over the world. So the single biggest thing that has a big impact on their profitability is actually dollar to yen rate. And just about 2.5, 3 years ago, they used to operate at a rate of $1 to about 100 or 95 yens, and now it has gone down to 70, 75. So that has a big impact on their bottom line. And they have to be aware that if this is not going to hold up in long term, then they need to look at what they need to do and where they need to manufacture their cars.
Absolutely, Vivek. What sort of levels are we talking about for the yen when making cars in Japan is, quite frankly, well, it's not worth their while?
Yeah, it changes year on year, but now we understand that they are looking at dollar to yen rate of about 80 to 85 to be sustainable and profitable. But as we see, the rate of yen is gone even below that. So that's where they will struggle. That's where they will have challenges to overcome.
I want to just talk very briefly and get back to what we were talking about originally, which is, of course, the Thai floods and how they're affecting these car makers there. And, for you, which is the car company which is worst affected by what's happened in Thailand?
Looking at the volumes as well as the location, I would say Toyota and Honda in that order are worst affected. Toyota has the largest production facilities in Thailand, and that has a big impact. Also, Toyota uses this base to export pickup trucks in Europe, in Middle East, in Australia. So all that is going to get impacted. And Honda, because their factories are located in the worst flooded areas, that is Ayutthaya, which is right at the center of or epicenter of the flood. That's where they are located. So they will take a very long time to come back to its normal production levels, because they currently have about 2 meter or 3 meter high water in their plants. So it's going to take a really long time for them to get back their plants fully in action and resume the normal production.
Right, very briefly, does it mean that these car makers are going to have to change strategy somewhat and perhaps try and ameliorate further natural disasters globally?
Yes, that's right. I think, so far this seems to be the weaker part, that when you open the plants, when you open the new production facilities, you probably have overlooked what kind of natural disasters can impact it. And that is something that will definitely be in the front fore of these people. Another thing that will need to happen, we brushed it aside when Tohoku earthquake happened, that supply chains may not change, but probably the just-in-time is just too fine-tuned to have these kind of disruptions, and probably they would need to have like at least a month's inventory in stock in their supply chain somewhere to overcome these kind of problems, these kind of challenges that natural disasters are posing.
Vivek, thank you so much for joining us. Vivek Vaidya there from Frost Sullivan joining us from Singapore.